With our front and rear gearboxes complete, along with the centre differential, it's time to start building out and adding more to the gearboxes. And so it's on to Bag E, the rear end assembly. With this bag we are looking at our rear assembly, so we'll need to work with the rear gearbox section we've built from the previous bag, and with that to hand we can go ahead and empty the contents of Bag E. Here we find the rear arms introduced with the Nitro version of this buggy. They allow a lot more adjustment to your static toe, the height of the hub and so on. Very rigid and of a high quality too. We also have the hinge pin inserts where you can choose which to use depending on how you want your toe and rear roll center for instance, as well as the 2.5mm sway bar along with all the sway bar mounting parts and other general hardware. Finally, we have the machined aluminum C and D blocks, again crafted to precision and oozing high quality. Now the manual starts with the sway bar install first, although I'm going to deviate a little and start with the arms first just so I'm building from the bottom up and won't have the sway bar in the way when installing the arms. So with that said, we'll start with the C block, where we need to install inserts on each side, and I'll be sticking to the stock double dot down position for now. Notice the ridge around the edge, these fit nice and flush into the C block. With those in place we can use 2 of the 14mm button head screws to secure the C block to the front side of the gearbox. Going into plastic here so no thread lock required, although taking care not to over tighten. Moving across to our first arm now, where we need to insert the 10mm droop screw on the inner centre, followed by a hinge pin bushing on either side, allowing the hinge pin to now fall into place. Repeat with the second arm, so 10mm droop screw, hinge pin bushings, and hinge pin. We can now seat these into position into the C block hinge inserts we just installed, and they'll be secured with the D block. Talking of the D block, that's next, so grab it and insert the hinge pin inserts to either side. Again I'm sticking with stock so it's double dot down out inserts. And push into place, taking care to capture the hinge pins while doing so. And secure into position with the single 10mm button head screw. And that's our rear arms installed. Notice how free these are, no reaming required at all. Perfect. Okay, so now we can go back to the installation of the sway bar. Start by inserting the 2 bearings into the rear of the gearbox, before feeding the sway bar through, and then insert a sway bar screw mount onto each end and down towards the bearing. Note that the collar end faces down towards the bearing. And then insert set screws into both. Don't tighten down just yet, we need to make sure the sway bar is as centered as possible. So let's get the other ends into position, another reason why we installed the arms first. Anyway, to do that we need to grab our sway bar linkage and insert a pivot ball into each end, one with just the ball, and one end has a small collar. The Tekno shock tool comes in especially handy here. Use the ball out section for the standard ball, and the ball in section for the collared ball. Nice easy results every time. Repeat with the second linkage arm too. Insert one end of the sway bar into the pivot ball, and use a set screw to secure down into position, before placing the other end of the linkage into the suspension arm, and securing into position by inserting a 20mm cap-head screw through the arm and the pivot ball, securing it in place. Repeat the same process on the opposite side, securing the sway bar into position. All that's left is to place on a flat surface, ensuring the sway bar is as centered as possible, and tighten down the 2 screws toward the center of the sway bar, holding it securely in place. And that's the rear end assembly and Bag E complete. The buggy is starting to take some shape nicely now, and although we're 5 bags in, everything has pieced together with perfection. No issues at all. The arms are as free as they could possibly be with no extra intervention. Anyway, we'll carry on finishing up the rear end in the next video with Bag F, containing the rear hubs and camber links.